weekend was crazy, man. Football is undefeated. What's up? I'm Paco, and welcome back to another edition of the Weekend Recap here on Rabona TV, on YouTube, on the internet. If there's European action on the Weekend Recap makes an appearance every Monday, baby, and you can bet on that unless I'm on vacation in the backwoods of Quebec. But that's a rarity. That never happens. Except for once, 2 weeks ago. Let's go! Oh yeah, and I always forget to say this, the best way to get my attention is on Twitter. I do read the comments, obviously, but with the volume of them, it can be difficult to see everything, so if you have something to say, Twitter is your best chance. In England, let's start with City as my beautiful boy, Ruben Dias, made his debut up against Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds. This match was basically the definition of end-to-end action, as neither team was very interested in the midfield. Press, counter-press, quick transition, try to catch the defense on the back foot, repeat. Raheem Sterling with the goal for City in the first half, and things were looking like they were headed to a victory for City prior to the break. But in the middle third of the game, Leeds looked far more potent, and from a scrambly corner, Ederson was caught in no man's land while trying to deal with the cross, leaving it wide open for Rodrigo, his first of the season, 1-1. That was the final. I thought Ruben was quite decent for his first match ever in this side. I mean, yes, he did have a failed clearance that led to Leeds' counter that produced the corner they scored from, but there were still many steps and mistakes in between his failed clearing header in midfield, almost at center, to the goal that came from Ederson's mistake. That said, to be fair to Ederson, yes, he made a mistake, but he actually had a great game besides that. Plenty of decent saves, some of them one-on-one, solid showing from him. City still figuring things out in the attack. Bizarre to think that they're struggling so much in that sector. Aguero can't come back soon enough. I mean, a lot of City's players can't come back soon enough. They're dealing with a ton of injuries still. Chelsea had a huge 4-0 win against Crystal Palace in which Ben Chilwell had his big coming out party, a goal and an assist, and just generally a very strong showing from him in his first Premier League appearance for Chelsea. Not bad. Chelsea really controlled this game, never really giving Palace an inch, never even allowing them a shot on target in this game. Jorginho converted a couple of penalties, another good performance from a man whose future was in doubt, but has put in a couple of, solid performances for Lampard recently. 3 goals and 1 assist in 3 appearances. 4-0 Chelsea, and West Ham United, after looking like absolute crap for the entirety of 2019-20 season, are on that new now. Vintage Moyes boys. Vintage Moyes. This weekend they threw up the second most shocking of the results in England as they smacked 3 past Leicester. Sorry, I should say the third most shocking. The third most shocking. But yeah, they beat Leicester 3-0, and this is the thing with Leicester, as I tried to articulate in my Premier League predictions, as good as they are at times, as good as Roger sets them up at times, he does have a disaster class in him as well. Yes, they beat City, but man, 3-0 against West Ham? A 3-0 loss against West Ham, a team whose manager is still self-isolating after testing positive for COVID, and honestly, it should have been more for West Ham, who defended brilliantly. Leicester were held to 4 attempts, again, none of which were on target. That's the exact same stat as Crystal Palace versus Chelsea. I had to check that out because I was having a hard time thinking of when they really troubled West Ham besides the second half when Vardy should have scored. So a big win for the Hammers. Arteta's Arsenal continued to roll on as they edged Sheffield United 2-1 at the Emirates. 2 goals in the span of 3 minutes, 2 assists from Hector Bellerin, a goal apiece from Saka and Pepe. Pepe's was a true beauty, and I mean, giving Bellerin credit for the assist there, that's a funny one. As he picked up the ball at midfield and slalomed through before scoring. Arsenal did have to batter down the hatches at the end of this one as Sheffield gave it a good go. Sheffield United. Sorry, Sheffield people for not saying United there. And they got a goal through David McGoldrick, but coming close to an equalizer is about as far as they got in this one. A tough second season for Sheffield so far as they try to recapture the heights they reached last season, which was always going to be very difficult. 2-1 Arsenal. They have 3 victories. Sheffield 0-4. Everton continue to roll on as they beat Brighton 4-2 at Goodison Park. James at the center of all things good at Everton once again as he scored twice and set up Yerry Mina. He scored 3 times and assisted twice in 4 appearances so far as Ancelotti has this team flying. And as always, if I am wrong about something, I am happy to admit it, and if Ancelotti can keep this going, it's still early, remember, then I will gladly apologize. I like Ancelotti, I want him to do well, but I had no real evidence that he would excel at Everton. He is so far this season, after a very uninspiring run last season, and so if he continues, Big apology from Adrian and I. I had those same terms for Solskjaer. I said long ago that he should have been sacked, about a year ago or so, when United were struggling. Then it looked as if he had turned things around, and I said I would gladly admit I was wrong about him if he could continue on this trajectory, but yikes so far. After the loss to Crystal Palace, the United vs Spurs match from Old Trafford was certainly wild. The word of this match, embarrassing. 30 seconds in, penalty for United. Great call there, deserved, dispatched by Bruno, as per the custom. Then Spurs hit back through the man who was surging up the Mourinho happiness rankings. Tanguy and Ndombele bundled it home. Embarrassing defending from United there. That was act 1 of their embarrassing defending. Again, from a foul, United's defense was switched off, and the quick free kick from Kane sprung Son, and he guided it into the corner beyond De Gea, and then the controversy came into play. The Martial red card, while you hate to see someone get sent off for something as soft as that, I mean, I've suffered far worse injuries when biting my tongue while eating, but that's not the point here. And here's the letter of the law in regards to violent conduct. A player who, when not challenging for the ball, deliberately strikes an opponent or any other person on the head or face with the hand or arm is guilty of violent conduct unless the force used was negligible. I mean, it was basically negligible in my opinion, but hey. A big shout out to Mike at Victoria Gooner on Twitter, who he himself is a referee for always pulling up the laws of the game during contentious times as these. So, while Lamella's play acting was absolutely, say it with me, embarrassing, and the smack was soft from Martial, unfortunately, he's forced the hand of the referee. He's forced him into sending him off for that one. Now the question remains, as Lamella's forearm hit Martial in the chin, he was trying to shove him and it sort of went up and hit him in the chin. Should he get a red as well? I believe because it wasn't deliberate, as he was trying to shove him in the shoulder and it rolled up into his chin, while Martial's was deliberate. He hit his target. I assume that's sort of the reasoning as to why he didn't send them both off. But we all know that 2 yellows would have been a much better outcome from all of this. But let's be real here. As I said on Twitter, the red card wasn't going to change anything in this match really, because United cannot defend. And especially sending off their number 9, which wouldn't have changed their defensive approach at all, they were extremely poor. With Kane scoring to make it 3-1 shortly after the red card, then Serge Aurier rolling it inside to Heung-min Son, whose deft touch squeezed past De Gea for 4-1. It was bad stuff for United. This one ended 6-1. Terrible for United. A goal from Serge Aurier, a penalty from Harry Kane in the second half. They did stop the bleeding a bit, but my God, were they ever humbled by Spurs. And Mourinho's got Spurs going, man. And they still have Bale to come.
6-1 at home to Spurs. Are you having a laugh? The state of it.
Speaking of humbling, nobody in the Liverpool squad was spared from a humbling by Aston Villa. And so a massive amount of props are in order for Aston Villa. I knew Ollie Watkins would be a great signing for them, but wow, a first half hat-trick against Liverpool. Never would have expected that of him, no matter the quality he had shown last season with Brentford. Liverpool were without Mane, yes, but that's why they signed Jota, to be the next best thing outside of Klopp's preferred front 3. But man, it wasn't the attack that was a problem with Liverpool, but their defense. Joe Gomez was horrendous. Adrian, man, you know how we have spoken a few times on this channel, how the importance of a keeper, and not just in the shot-stopping category, but in the confidence to the defenders in front of them, the role that a keeper plays in that. I mean, I'm not going to put it all on him, because that back line, Van Dijk, Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Gomez, looked horrible. But it doesn't help when you have someone other than Alisson in goal. Adrian seemingly does the opposite of instill confidence in them. And that, plus the fact that we need to give Villa all the credit in the world for their performance, equates to this absolute humbling by Villa. I mean, it was 5-2 after 60 minutes, and I was saying, that's it. This is insane. Craziest result yet. Yes, they had a few very lucky deflections along the way. We're talking about the 5th and 6th goals in particular, though there were 3 deflected goals total. But man, Liverpool did not look good at all. These goals weren't just deflections. They were horrid defense. Where was Alexander-Arnold for the 7th? You know, yes, I said 7th goal. 7-2 the final. Aston Villa win their opening 3 matches of the season for the first time in 58 years. Still too early to bother with the standing, so we'll get to that maybe next week. Back to Germany, and Bayern are back to winning after defeating Borussia Dortmund in the German Super Cup midweek. They then return to the Bundesliga victory column with a 4-3 win over Hertha Berlin. All of the goals courtesy of who? Do I even need to say it? No, not Javi Martinez. I know that was on the tip of all your tongues, but Robert Lewandowski, a scrappy Pole, a Polishman, who's found some success in Germany, I'd say. This match was a roller coaster. While the Premier League offered up a ton of entertainment, this Bayern vs Hertha thriller was incredible as well. Bayern 2-0 up, then Cordoba and Piatek pull it back to make it 2-2. Bayern take the lead via you-know-who in the 85th minute. Hertha equalized 3-3 once again in the 88th, only for Bayern to take the match thanks to a Lewandowski penalty in the 93rd minute. Are you not entertained? Were you not entertained this weekend no matter what you watched? Damn, man. Bayern's defense in the mud, but Bolbeck showing no signs of slowing down after last season. By the way, I heard you like strikers that score in bunches, because Borussia Dortmund's Erling Braut Haaland loves scoring in bunches, and in his first full season with Dortmund, he's already up to 4. Sure, that only puts him in 3rd place in the goal scoring standings, but the link up between the Borussia boys, literal boys, as there's a lot of teams in that team, has been great to watch. A brace for Haaland against Freiburg, both of which set up by Gio Reyna. They are looking great together. Gio Reyna actually got 3 assists in this one, as he also set up Emre Can. And Felix Passlack, perhaps not the most glamorous arrival for Borussia Dortmund, or I guess I should say return to Borussia Dortmund, but he's been solid so far this season. He scored the 4th and a 4-0 win for El Dortmundo. Why'd I call him that? Don't know. RB Leipzig versus Schalke, and Schalke are already dead in their graves, of course. David Wagner is gone already. Bottom of the table, not a point to their name, just a single goal to their name, and RB Leipzig came along and hit them for 4-0, and there was never really any competition in this one. I feel for Schalke fans, as they deserve much better than this. It's going to be a long season for them, and one in which a relegation is not outside the realm of a possibility if they don't turn things around. Still very early though, they can still climb back up. I think they will ultimately survive, but man, brutal. Minus 14 goal difference after just 3 matches? Ugh. 8 of which were scored by Bayern, mind you. VfL Wolfsburg and Bayer Leverkusen are both early contenders for the absolutely stingy bastards of the season award, as both are sitting on 3 points from 3 matches, all 3 of which procured from draws. Wolfsburg have conceded once and scored once in those 3 games, while Bayer Leverkusen have scored 2 and conceded 2. They didn't play each other this weekend, but they are certainly similar results-wise thus far. Can't wait till they play each other. Big shout out to Union Berlin after their 4-0 win over FSV Mainz. Remember Max Kruse? He's back in Germany after his vacation in Turkey via Fenerbahce, and he scored in what was his first start of the season. Love to see it. Union Berlin is such an interesting team to me. It was amazing that they even made it to the Bundesliga. Fantastic, they survived it, and I hope they find some form to stay up again. We need some Berlin derbies on a more regular occasion in the top flight, man. Hoffenheim, after defeating Bayern so handily last weekend, had a classic big win hangover as they fell 2-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt. To be fair though, Eintracht Frankfurt is playing quite well so far this season after a bit of a slouch last season. Andrej Kramaric scored after 18 minutes, 6 goals scored so far for him, and Hoffenheim were fairly comfortable for the first half, but Ati Hutter fixed things in the second half, and goals from Kamala and Bas Dost secured the victory royale. And finally, I know you will all be very happy to see that Borussia Mönchengladbach, who boast the quote, most erotic manager in the league, Marco Rose, are off to the races as far as getting their first victory of this season. They beat FC Köln 3-1 as Jonas Hoffmann grabbed a pair of assists in the first 16 minutes. Lars Stindl converted a penalty, and Gladbach won 3-1. Köln haven't won a match since March 6th, prior to the COVID break. It hurts to see that. In Italy, it was a weird one, a weird sort of weekend, as the highlight match, Juve versus Napoli, was, well, if you tuned in, you would have just seen this. Nothing. Nada. Why? Because Napoli didn't show up. Why? Because they had a couple of players test positive for COVID-19. Okay, so it was postponed, or did it constitute as a forfeit for Napoli? Because as you'll remember, I mean, players have tested positive during the season so far and have simply been removed from the squad, yet the team moves on. So what's up with Napoli? It's all very, very confusing. Juve went about their business as if nothing was going on. Fans arrived at the stadium. Juve named their starting 11, even though they knew the match wouldn't go forward because Napoli wasn't there. I mean, they did this to cover their bases, their asses, basically, because Napoli were back in Naples as they didn't travel, so Juve had to show up still in case they could get that 3-0 free victory. Ultimately, the Serie A rules have been contradicting themselves as they state that a match should go ahead so long as the team has 13 players, including a goalkeeper, available to them, while the local authority for Napoli said they should not travel, so it's a big shrug. Still a developing story to see what happens there. Is it postponed? Is it a defeat? We'll see. By the way, Genoa and Torino had their match called off as well, as Genoa have a massive coronavirus outbreak on their hands, announcing that 14 players and staff have tested positive, with up to 10 of those cases believed to be amongst their players. Insane, and it's believed to be the biggest outbreak in a football team in Europe. The second wave, man, is raging across the world. Anyway, elsewhere, Atalanta just continued to do their thing no matter who they are facing. After beating Lazio 4-1 away midweek, they took on Cagliari, and there was no slowing down at all. No resting on their laurels, as after 42 minutes, they were 4-1 up. Like I said, they do their best to score early, and often they try to sucker punch you before you can even react. Pasalic with a great game, Papu Gomez influential as ever, Muriel and Zapata supplying some goals, the Colombian connection. A great day for Atalanta once again, and they have already scored 13 goals from 3 matches. Next up for them, the high-flying but quarantining Napoli. Roma got their first win of the season as they went away to Udine, and despite effectively sitting out the second half, held on to their 1-goal lead from a Pedro goal. His first for Roma in the Serie A. A day of firsts for Roma. First goal for Pedro, first win for them. Benevento, they did not get their first win. They got what was their second win of the season this weekend as they beat Bologna 1-0. Benevento, of course, won the Serie B last season, blowing away the competition and winning it by a full 18 points. They're certainly looking way better than the last time we saw Benevento in the Serie A. 2 wins and a loss, one of which being to Inter. A heavy loss, of course, but still. Speaking of which, Inter took on Lazio in a very eye-catching clash from the outset, and they put in a very Inter performance. You know, Inter fans will know what I mean by that. They didn't lose, but they had issues getting it over the line once again, drawing 1-1, a match that saw Ciro Immobile get sent off for violent conduct. He gave Arturo Vidal a nice swipe in the face as he was lying on the ground. Then Vidal was down. It was a mess. Stefano Sensi made sure everything ended even. The 1-1 scoreline and the amount of players on the pitch as he put an arm to Patrick's chest, touched his chin a la Lamela on Martial, and Patrick went down a la Lamela when Martial touched his face. More pitiful stuff, but hey. Lautaro was the scorer for Inter, Milinkovic-Savic for Lazio. Poor performance from Inter as Lazio were down a man for a good 25 minutes in the second half before Sensi was sent off. They couldn't get the winner. You wouldn't have really known that they were a man up. Missed opportunity. And finally, Milan played against one of the new boys to the league, Spezia, who are fresh off of a 2-0 win over Udinese. This Milan team is not messing around, man. They won 3-0, meaning they are yet to concede a single goal this season in the Serie A, and fans will love to see Rafael Leão scoring a brace, as he's one of those players with so much promise, but sometimes has a real problem with reaching the heights he threatens to, you know? The heights he's capable of. Theo Hernandez with the other goal for Milan. That's 3 clean sheets for Gigio Donnarumma following his heroics in the shootout against Rio Ave in the Europa League qualifiers. Stefano Pioli proving that day after day he really is that dude for Milan. Ibrahimovic still not in the fold. Rebic unavailable from injury, and they still win. You couldn't have said that about a previous Milan side, a recent previous Milan side. We'll finish things up in Spain quickly, as I am again speaking way too much, mostly about the Premier League, to be honest with you. Next week, we'll focus on the other leagues more, I promise. I won't completely neglect the Premier League, but I won't speak at length for as many matches. Real Madrid was able to keep their unbeaten start to the La Liga season alive as they beat Levante, a very poor Levante, or at least a Levante side that is having a rough start. That's 3 losses from their opening 4 matches, bottom of the table kind of form alongside Valladolid, another team that Real got the better of. Vinicius scored his 2nd of the season from his 3rd appearance, and early doors he's looking like he'll play a far more prominent role at Real Madrid this season, especially with how Eden Hazard is absolutely blowing it when it comes to being a professional athlete. Constantly showing up overweight after the summer, you'd think he'd want to do a bit better, unfit, and then rushing to get fit, and he gets a muscular injury. He'd missed 20 games in his entire Chelsea career, and he's already missed 24 at Real Madrid following his €100 million move. This is not it. But anyways, later in the game, Karim Benzema grabbed a goal as he was one-on-one in the final minute, cut inside and scored. That will come as a relief as Levante actually had a pretty great second half, and if it wasn't for Courtois and some stellar defending, they may have found an equalizer at some point before Benzema's insurance goal. His first of the season, by the way. You down with Real Sociedad yet? Because they got another 3-0 win, man, this time beating Getafe at home. Goals from the two Mikels, Merino and Oyarzabal, as well as another from Donny Portu. Not David Silva's best game ever, but he's still getting used to his surroundings, and the rest of the team is performing, so all is well under Imanol. Atletico Madrid played out their second 0-0 draw in a row, which is very disappointing from them, but not at all surprising considering how constipated they can get in the attack. Apologies for the visual, but there's no other way to describe it. Of all the words in the English language, that was the only option. I had no choice. I was forced into it. Real Betis are in title scrap form right now as they have won their third La Liga match from 5 under Manuel Pellegrini. Betis overcoming Valencia on this occasion, as all is not well in Valencia. I feel for them. Crap owners, crap product on the pitch. Not a fun time for them, where it seems as though mediocrity is going to be the name of the game this season. I expect a mid-table finish from them. Not enough for an absolute crisis, but nothing to get excited about either. Barcelona and Sevilla played out a 1-1 draw. Nothing of major note to speak of here, really, as the opening 10 minutes set us up for what was expected to be a super exciting match, but ultimately failed to deliver on those expectations. There were moments, of course, but meh. De Jong scored for Sevilla. Coutinho equalized as he continues to have decent performances for Barcelona so far. Very even match, really. Nothing between them, and a fair result. All right, that's all for this episode, guys. As always, I thank you for joining me on this Monday. Stay tuned for more videos from Rabona TV this week, such as perhaps our Champions League predictions and more. My name is Paco. I love ya, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.